thinking about some like banter we can do. It's just pathetic. Our audience, they buy this each time. They think we're having these real conversations.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's so, I can't believe they don't see through it. It's just, I don't. You know, you'd think at this point they would realize that all this banter is completely scripted and not based in like real conversations we're having, but they just don't get it. I don't know what's going on.
No. I think our banter's just too complex and too authentic. They can't pick up on it.
They can't pick up on this very subtle. Oh, what is this? Is this thing on? Is this recording? Oh my!
Did I just click the record button?
Oh my goodness! I didn't realize. Oh my gosh! How embarrassing!
Oh, yeah, it's so embarrassing. You caught us being funny.
Hello everyone. It's the Insurgents episode 92. Really? Rob and Jordan here. Yeah, 92. Getting them into the triple digits.
Wow.
Yeah. We're entering year 3.
I
doing
know.
The show.
Isn't that nuts?
It is nuts.
I was
it's
thinking
hard to
the
believe.
other day, like how different things were when we started and what our kind of goals for this was or were, and then I just thought completely changed.
We'd be finishing up on the year 1 of the Bernie Sanders administration right now. A year in review.
We were so naive.
Yeah, I know. I don't know what I was thinking. I thought something good might happen in America. Never again am I going to allow myself to think that something positive could happen in the United States of America.
Unbelievable.
You got Rob and Jordan here, everybody. In a few minutes, we got Marcus from Left Flank Vets coming on the program to talk to us. We had a pretty long conversation with Marcus about, the Biden administration, what it's been like over the last year, the sort of girl boss fandom that's emerged around like Jen Psaki and her like very flippant comments about, voters that have the temerity to like ask them to do their basic jobs. Whole bunch of stuff. Really good conversation with Marcus. I think you're going to enjoy that. Did you have anything else? I've been streaming all day and podcasting, and my brain just feels like sandpaper now. Do you have anything? Is there anything else we need to talk about beyond? We talked about football. Even we got that banter out of the way as well.
We got the football chat in, which people definitely tune in for.
Yeah.
No, like I told you, I was building furniture all day, and just I'm fried. I have no energy to try to do a bit or to make fake small talk. I did think our conversation with Marcus was good. So we could just jump straight into that. Yeah.
Before we do that, and I think you're right, I think we should do that. Before we do that, I want to remind everyone that you can indeed subscribe to this podcast. Our last episode 91, was with Derek Davison. Really, really good conversation for subscribers only. Derek Davison, of course, of Foreign Exchanges, also our partner on Discontents. We had a really good conversation about foreign policy and all of these geopolitical flashpoints going on. If you want to hear every single episode of this program, that's how you do it. Is by subscribing. You can do so on Substack, theinsurgents.substack.com. It's $5 a month to get all the episodes. Like we said, we're heading into year 3. We would like, I think, to try and see if we can boost those numbers up ever so slightly. They are kind of rookie numbers. We got to boost those up, as the saying goes. Mm-hmm. So subscribe to the podcast, folks. That's all.
Yeah, I think it's a good deal. And with that, I mean, the more we can have in a subscriber base, the more or the easier it is to return to a twice a week recording schedule, with every other episode being premium. So brings more value to the subscribers as well. This year, I think we're going to have a really great lineup, so to speak. I think we've been talking to folks in the progressive world about really covering some of these primary challenges and the intra-party jockeying for the future of the Democratic Party, and having those conversations front and center on this show in a way like very few others can. So I'm really excited about this year.
Me too. Season 3. Here, let's go.
Season 3.
That's right.
Let's go. We got renewed, folks.
Yeah. That's it, folks. Subscribe to the podcast. Let's talk to Marcus from Left Flank Vets. He's going to be joining the program right after this. So I don't know if either of you guys are like football fans. I'm not really. I usually watch like 1 or 2 football games a year. Last night, I only really experienced these like football games through tweets and just looking at what people's reactions were, but it speaks to the level of sports pain that Bills fans were feeling this morning, that I even without even really being emotionally invested, without even watching the game, I still felt the secondary sports pain from Bills fans for like the excruciating loss that they had to deal with. I felt really bad for everyone, even though I was not even remotely emotionally invested in it. It seemed really bad stuff.
Yeah, which I feel like, there's a few teams that's their narrative. The Buffalo Bills is one of those teams. I grew up in Ohio. The Cleveland Browns. If you're from Cleveland, aka the Cardiac Kids. I've seen grown adults like be in tears in the off season discussing Browns history.
Jordan knows about this too, I think, too.
Yeah, that's my team. That's my team. I mean, like, my dad, when the Browns left, I mean, obviously, and he was like alive during the '80s for like, the drive, the fumble, Red Raid '88, like the Cardiac Kids era, and he went to the final home game before they moved to Baltimore, and the way he described it for years after was like he lost a loved one, like an immediate family member. He's like, oh, it's just so sad, and people were like taking bleachers out of the out of the stadium.
They tore apart the stadium
home with them,
right?
Yeah. And just like, it sucked. I mean, I was a kid, so I didn't like fully have the history, and it does suck that like not only that they left, but they left, and then a couple of years later, Baltimore won the Super Bowl. But like, yeah, the level of like devotion to these teams, it really can't be overstated. And yeah, the Bills had like, I mean, they lost 4 straight Super Bowls, and they have gotten close so many times, but just can never get there. And last night in that game, you thought they were going to win. I mean, Josh Allen played out of his fucking mind for a second. Like, one of the greatest postseason performances across the board in NFL history, because his game against the Patriots was phenomenal, and last night he played stellar. He scored a touchdown with 16 seconds to go, and in your mind, I'm sure for so many Bills fans, like, we got this.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I saw that like win percentage thing. That's just like, it's like they haven't lost. At that point, you score a touchdown at the end of a big playoff game like that, 99.9999%. That's you're going away with a W.
Well, part of it was also how awful the NFL's overtime rules are.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this was like in the last like 2 minutes and some odd seconds, there were multiple possessions resulting in scores. Like, I think at least 3 touchdowns in just like the last 2 minutes. Like Kansas City scored or Buffalo scored, and then Kansas City scored, and then Josh Allen got the ball back with a minute to go, and within 40-some seconds, drives down the field and scores a touchdown, and then Kansas City gets down there in 16 seconds to kick a field goal to tie, and then you go into overtime, you're thinking like, oh my god, this is just like electric. And the way the NFL's overtime rules are, which have improved over the past couple of years, but still just suck, it's sudden death if you score a touchdown. So Kansas City wins the toss, gets the ball, and that streak continues. Kansas City scores. Josh Allen doesn't even get to take the field. It's a travesty that someone who literally had one of the best postseason performances of all time doesn't even get to touch the ball in overtime. It has to be changed.
Yeah.
Well, the parliamentarian said no, and
there we go.
That's the transition to politics.
That's very nice. Look at that, another professional broadcaster. That's right. As we know, the most powerful person in the U.S. government, the most powerful person in the NFL as well, who we all knew about prior to the last couple of months. We're here with Marcus. We're with Marcus from Left Flank Vets, the very popular Twitch stream, Left Flank Vets. Long time coming, Marcus. We're happy to have you on the show. Thanks for joining us.
You don't have to openly make fun of me, Rob, and say that we're very popular like that. You don't have to be
the somewhat popular.
Thank you.
Twitch.
Thank you.
This Twitch stream that'll never match Rob's numbers. Just slightly less subversive Twitch stream.
Exactly.
Well, there are times, there are seconds when we get rated by actual popular people, and for those few seconds that were above
those
Rob,
brief fleeting moments. Yeah.
That's when I take the screen grabs from my computer.
Yeah.
Marcus, we ask everyone who comes on the show the same question to get the conversation started, just so we know who we're dealing with and whether or not the conversation should continue. So we've asked everyone, and now it's your turn. Marcus, are you a gamer?
I am now, thanks to you, Jordan.
You've seen the light. I'm happy that my my
There's
missionary
nothing that
work.
makes Jordan happier than when we get these kind of answers.
Yeah. Well, you invited me to a fundraiser. It could have been months, years, or decades ago. Time is a flat circle. But either way, I've been getting W's, getting those victory royales in Fortnite. And
That's what I'm talking about.
I appreciate you leading me into the gamer path.
Yeah, I feel like it's like a dealer leaving a little bit of heroin at someone's apartment.
A little sample.
Just like, hey, you know where to find this. It's like what I'm doing with what I'm doing with Fortnite. I'm just like, hey, you should just come play on. It's a charity thing, Just download the game. It's
little
great.
taste. Yeah,
it's fun. Then you don't have to play it again. Ha ha ha. Wink, wink. And knowing it's just like it is just like it's crack for gamers. It's all consuming. That game is fun, but it's definitely addictive.
Well, thanks.
Yeah. I don't even have anything new. I haven't been playing anything else either. Like, I feel like there's other games like that I could be getting into. I've got a whole Steam library of games that I've just never played. And then it's like anytime I think about playing something else, it's like, or I could grind that battle pass. Gotta get that Spider-Man skin.
I did
Wait, you don't have the Spider-Man skin yet?
No, well, I'm a filthy casual still, though, so.
Yikes.
I'm not quick.
I feel like the last game that I played was Tonight We Riot, which was, it's like you're like the proletariat and you rise up against the corporations.
It's like the side scroller game.
Yeah. And I played that for a few days. But that was before I guess Jordan had got me hooked on the drug that is the games, So here I am.
Yeah.
I played that a little bit. The Tonight We Riot. I like it.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a little good time,
It's cute. Other than I started a new playthrough of The Forest. I'm doing that on Gamebusters on TYT here and there. So that I'm excited to jump back into that. But it's mostly been Fortnite and then a little bit of Death Stranding. Have either of you guys played that?
I'm intrigued by it. I mean, I love Kojima. I'm a big Metal Gear fan. I never Death Stranding seems very interesting. At the same time, I'm not sure that it's like when I've been on a game, I feel like I have so little time to game. I want to get in some little battle royale action. I don't really have the time to devote to this walking across the ruined countryside carrying a big stack of crates.
Mm-hmm.
It seems kind of enjoyable, but I just don't know if I need that in my life right.
There's definitely more to it. I kind of thought it was like UPS sim as well, but I'm pretty early in, and there was way more to it than I knew, and it's weird. It's weird in a good way. I like it. It's very different.
Maybe I'll play it eventually.
I got it for cheap.
I've not.
Epic had a sale, and I ended up getting for $10. So next time they have a coupon, just try to grab it there.
Yeah. All right. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. Or we'll just continue playing this battle royale game for little children. Maybe I'll just keep doing that. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe one day you'll get the Spider-Man skin.
Yeah.
Something I already got despite being gone for a month. Just saying. I'm just saying. There's just
right.
maybe something to be said about skill level or something.
Yeah.
Like that.
The level of commitment that certain people have to
building.
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely building.
Listen, Marcus, here's one of the reasons. I think I've been wanting to have you on the show for a while. We've hooked up a few times in the sort of streaming world. Had you on the stream a few times. I think I've appeared on Left Flank Vets a couple times. Happy to have you on the podcast. One of the reasons is, there's a lot of stuff we can talk about today. One of the reasons is I really do admire your devotion to just absolutely punishing yourself and destroying your own brain by really closely following the sort of day in, day out stuff about the Biden administration and the Jen Psaki press conferences and stuff. I don't know how you do it quite because I physically can't handle it.
Yeah, it's bad, and I'll steal a line from one of my favorite musicians, Zach Fox. Shout out mental illness. I've actually been doing this before Biden was president. I wasn't always a epic streamer that was mildly popular. I used to be a staffer for a member of Congress. And so for definitely the issues that I, had to work, specifically under and then, eventually everything, the Trump era was, wild times. And I guess what I definitely didn't want to do was, a very much different politically from, when Obama was coming around, and like the Bernie versus Hillary, and then Trump comes in, a whole lot of political awareness. And I definitely didn't want to allow what happened under the Obama administration, where people just weren't paying attention. And so I want to, as much as I can, pay attention and just kind of, like do my part. But there's like, a myriad of other media outlets now that are able to watch other aspects that I don't need to see or can't see. But
so what you're saying is like a sheepdog for the DNC, Democratic Party. You're kind of encouraging people to vote blue no matter who, that kind of thing.
Yeah, because like the lesser of two evils. It's always, it's never failed us.
Yeah, exactly.
But I guess, and also too, it's like, you guys can understand. It's like sometimes the community drives what you do, and there's a lot that goes on in government. Like when you're just like. There's a lot of things that things like C-SPAN or whatever, even just like internet and YouTube. Like government is largely showing you its cards as far as what's going on. But Psaki's girl bossness, it is it's addictive, and so myself and some of the left like community, we like if she's on, I will watch the full press conference, and some days are better than others, but the past few days have been pretty good.
Yeah, I think she's had a number of highlights over the last year, but I think like really the greatest example of the sort of Psaki attitude and kind of the attitude, I mean, she's the face of the Joe Biden administration in many ways. So it's like kind of the whole attitude of this kind of liberal elite class that runs the Democratic Party came the other day when, people are very obviously and very rightfully frustrated with their, seeming inability to actually pass the agenda that they campaigned on, whether it comes to the whole Build Back Better framework, whatever you want to call it, which just seems to be completely dead now. A few weeks ago, when they kind of abandoned doing the Build Back Better thing, they said, okay, now we're going to transition from that to the voting rights. Now we're going to focus on another thing that we're also not going to do. Yeah. And there was kind of a half-assed effort to suggest that they wanted to change the Senate rules to pass this, which of course did not happen. So that also seems to be completely dead at this point.
Yeah.
And Psaki, this was not during a press conference, but during an interview with The View, gave this quote about like, well, how, it didn't get done, but we can take the weekend, feel your feelings, go have a margarita, go to kickboxing class or whatever it was. Take the moment, take the weekend, the Monday we're back at work, and it's just like, it's really the ultimate example of the Psaki girl boss quote, right?
Yes.
It's really, and just, it sums up kind of so much about this administration and their approach to doing politics.
Yeah, which is that this is very much a job. If you're frustrated at work and you have the means to like go to a gym and sweat it out, and some of this is like, don't do that now, right? Like don't go to the gym and like work out with a bunch of people now. But like before COVID, you could, hey, you're just going to go work off the stress, because to the most powerful people in the world, in some cases, there's no, like reality to the issues and the policies that they dictate. It's just a job. And sometimes you get frustrated and you just need to sweat it out. Maybe go talk to some friends, go out, have a margarita, and then, back to, Monday comes and you're back to it. They don't feel that the fact that we're back in the height of COVID, and deaths are, at 2,000 people a day and peak hospitalizations again, like that, it doesn't matter, right? Because gonna have the margarita, gonna go to kickboxing, and yes, queen it back on Monday.
Yeah, the comment, like, who is that for? I mean, I guess like the View audience might eat that up, some of them,
and some of them did.
But of course they did. Like, yeah, I saw shit like, can we get a Jen Psaki Funko Pop, which I thought was just a great like encapsulation.
There's a whole fandom that's emerged over
of how people were like relate to her, and it's like these like press secretaries and comms people for the presidents, like their job is to like lie and spin for the most powerful person, one of the most powerful people in the world. And it was just like, there's just this collective amnesia around her role and her, like, that type of work, juxtaposed with how liberals reacted to the litany of Trump press secretaries over the past 4 years, where it's like everything they said was an attack on the free press, and it's Orwellian and dystopian and chilling and all these different things. The attacks on reporters are threats to free speech. And like, this is somebody who, like, a couple weeks ago mocked a reporter for asking if, they would consider a COVID testing plan, like rolling that out to give everyone tests, and she mocked it before they ultimately did it because that makes sense.
Oh, why don't we give everyone like a unicorn or whatever? And it's like, well,
yeah.
Just asking you to do your basic job, but okay, yeah.
Yeah, it's just like these types of things are so bizarre that they like. I don't know. It's reflective of like the to me, the lies and spin that a press secretary engages in is like part of their work, and people just like lap it up. I don't understand how we're like valorizing this person.
I don't necessarily understand it. I feel like there's a few things that we can point to that led to this moment. Because you take like the Obama like speechwriter guys, and they're now like podcast conglomerate.
Yeah.
And they're now like kind of like political like lib trendsetters, and that's the thing. It's like, really, it's like, if you listen to that stuff, the pod save stuff, you can immediately just understand a lot of like the talking points that people will immediately adhere to. And also too is like, when you come to Trump and you've got each of his press secretaries just being so grandiose and fantastic, horrible people in their own individual and special ways. Now it rolls into Psaki, the circle back thing, which, I play into a little bit as well. But, everyone now, right? Because like, you've got the same people for Fauci. You saw the same just sick adoration for Cuomo. It's just like, there's this now, like the fan club is attaching to almost any and all political officials, and even like the spokespeople as well, which I don't understand it. But here we are.
One thing that I find kind of interesting is the way that the way that the Democratic Party asks people to kind of engage with politics, which is through voting, right? If you don't like it, vote. That's the common refrain that we hear from all across the Democratic Party. Barack Obama infamously kind of says this a lot. Don't boo, vote. So then people do that. They don't really want people engaging in like this kind of sustained activism. And usually when they do, they see that as being like a thing that an albatross that hangs around their neck, and they try to distance themselves from it as much as possible, or try to appease the activists without actually doing anything to actually respond to what the activists are asking for. They really just want people to vote for the Democratic Party every 2 years, and then just go home and like let the professionals are back in charge. The adults are back in the room. You voted. You did it. You put us back in charge. Now just go home and let us do our jobs. But then when it comes to like them completely failing to actually do anything that people voted for them to do, then she goes on The View and it's described as this kind of collective thing. Well, we all need to suck it up and get back to work on Monday, right? We all just need to get back. And it's like, but no, you're the ones that are supposed to be doing this shit. You're the ones that they voted for you. They voted blue.
It's the work of saying.
Yeah.
They're doing the work of saying.
Yeah, exactly.
We saw that from Paul Begala, who on CNN like last week or the week before said the Democratic Party has a problem with their like base. It's basically like it's everyone else's fault. None of this stuff is getting passed because you didn't like raise awareness about voting hard enough or something. Like there's like it's not a problem of the Democrats failing to these people. It's that they're being failed. And there have been calls in op-eds and among the pundit class that like we need to just let the experts and the elites have more control over the process because they're the ones who know best. You get out of the way. It's the progressives and the leftists who are making it difficult by with their purity tests and XYZ. No, I mean this is the Biden's whole case for being the nominee was he was going to be the guy, unlike Sanders, who could reach across the aisle and get things done. That was his whole case, and people ate it up. People bought into this narrative that, Bernie's just too far to the left. He's not going to be able to get anything done. And they asked Bernie, remember, we've talked about this before, how would you make the case if people don't want to pass your agenda? And he said you would basically use the bully pulpit and go to these states where people were in the way, being obstructionists, and use the bully pulpit in their states, in their own backyard, to drive popular support for these types of things. Because that's how you're going to get members of Congress on your side, when you scare them with their voters. And Biden, people, somewhat rejected that premise. Biden was the guy who insisted he already could do it. He was already the guy who, because he had all this experience, he's made all these deals with Republicans. And then he gets in, obviously cannot do it, because in what world is a Republican going to cooperate with you? And then at a press conference this week, or last week, expressed surprise that that's happening. Dude, where have you fucking been? When Obama got elected, there's this famous meeting among Eric Cantor, John Boehner, Mitch McConnell, several other top Republicans at the time, at the restaurant Tortilla Coast right outside the Capitol, and they said, we're going to make Obama a one-term president. Nothing gets our support. This is how they have been since when you were vice president, and really even before that.
Yeah.
In what world are they going to suddenly change?
I did not anticipate. I did not anticipate that their only agenda would be to stop the president. It's I'm literally a dumb asshole, and I anticipated it. I'm not even American.
Yeah.
I anticipated it.
And being on the other
side. You're the
side.
vice president, sir. What's the matter with you? Come on, Joe.
But
Jesus.
Also, being on the other side of the Trump presidency, did politics get better? Did politics get more or less partisan in the time? If you can just think back real hard, Joe, and remember, how did things change between then and now? Because when Obama came in, there were groups of Americans marching around, with little stuffed Obamas that hanging from a noose. That's how that administration started. Then there was Trump afterwards. They stormed into the fucking Capitol. Where have you been?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, then that's another kind of infamous quote during the sort of primary, where he would say, well, the fever's going to break. Mac, the fever's going to break, and they're going to go back to being, they're going to support me in trying to pass common sense bipartisan solution. And it's just what fucking planet do you live on that you actually think that? It's really amazing.
You have, and it's you look at the officials that have been censured by their party, at least state, and you've got Kyrsten Sinema just recently, and Liz Cheney. Now, why was Liz Cheney censured? And I think, then booted from the Republican Party because she supported the January 6th Commission and was willing to be on it. We're not living in that world. And that's the thing is Joe Biden, he hasn't lived in that world since he became vice president.
Not even before. I mean, you can trace this kind of politics in the Republican Party all the way back to Newt Gingrich and shit, in the early '90s. It's been it's been like this for 30
they were able to get
years.
the crime bill. He was some of the things as far as the Iraq War. I mean, that's something that Joe Biden wanted when Clinton was. So when it came to Bush politics, there were some things where things that Joe Biden wanted, he was able to get.
Something else that I find kind of interesting as well is the way that they frame, when Psaki comes out there and says oh, you want tests for the deadly pandemic destroying millions of people's lives? Oh, you want tests? As just this basic thing that people are asking for, and framing it as this fantasy, unicorns or whatever. And I remember when Hillary Clinton wrote her book about the 2016 primary and the 2015-16 primary against Bernie, that's how she framed Bernie promising to give people health care and stuff, being oh, if you were promising people puppies and rainbows and stuff like that, the way that they talk about basic necessities for people to live, rather than people supported Bernie because he's literally promising to try and help them, get health care that's going to immeasurably improve their lives. People are suffocating under all this medical debt. And it's just like the idea that we can do our basic job as a politician to like improve people's material conditions is slightly. It's framed by these like out of touch elites in the Democratic Party as being this like fantasy world, puppy and rainbow and unicorn thing. And then they turn around and wonder like, why does everyone hate us? It must be because of like Russian disinformation or something. It's just completely perplexing that people would like see us react this way to them asking us to do our basic jobs to help them and help improve their lives slightly. And then to turn around and not like us when we just like, throw that in their face. It's like, it's amazing how out of touch they are.
And there's the difficult thing with that too, is that I feel the one positive note is that her, saying or her laughing at just, common sense government help in, 2 years into a pandemic. It did get them doing something, obviously not enough. It's like 4 tests for every household, pretty much no matter what. I mean, in some cases, you have these apartment complexes where the addresses aren't updated. And so you could have 2, 3, who knows how many apartments and only 4 tests for all of them. And also in how things are even designed is that 2 tests per person. So really, if you have more than 2 people in the household, you're you're kind of short. So even with that outcry that occurred from that, like what they're even willing to do is, I guess that's an effort, but like, wow.
And this is COVID tests too, but this is after they've already like cut off all the employment benefits, all the childcare stuff which they had talked about, like, oh, it's like cut childhood poverty in half and stuff like that. All that's gone. All the stimulus is gone.
Yes.
There's no actual like financial or monetary help to do anything. It's like, oh yeah, here's a couple of tests for the plebs. Maybe we'll get you sent to some N95 masks and just go back to work, And then they're like, why is our poll number is just really better now? It must be because our delusional supporters are just not forgiving enough of this stuff. It must be they're the problem, not
Nobody
us.
Voted this week. Yeah, they didn't vote
That's
this
the
week.
issue.
I mean, they didn't stay in line. They were warned. Just if you're in line to vote, stay in line.
Yeah.
No, it's a totally out of touch, like chaotic administration. Chaotic in a much different way than Trump's, but it is just they are. They're really scrambling to do anything, get anything accomplished, do something. And there's like, a huge slam dunk, free, just wide open lane and canceling student debt. And they don't want to do that because, that kind of, that burden on people keeps them reliant on whatever shitty job they might have, which, appeases a wide swath of their donors and elite supporters with the kind of the wealthy elite class. It certainly funnels people into the military and the military industrial complex. There's a wide range of issues, or there's a wide range of reasons why they won't do that. But if they were to do that, it would, free up nearly $2 trillion in debt and basically remove a huge financial burden from tens of millions of people. And that they won't do that shows just how beholden they are to the elite class, which is just really frustrating. And they are coming down to the wire here to try to get anything done because it doesn't look like they're going to get reconciliation through. If Manchin and Sinema wouldn't support the rules for voting rights, they're not going to do it for this. They don't really seem to support the package. They couldn't get voting rights done. They probably aren't going to get reconciliation done. And they just are, they're now staring at primary season where no one's really going to focus on what's happening in Congress because all the House needs to run for re-election and a third of the Senate is up for re-election. So they're looking home, they're looking to fundraise, and they're looking to run re-election campaigns. The window of opportunity is very, very slim. There's going to be something in the summer. So the next few weeks, they're going to have another financial squabble over the deficit or, continuing resolution, shutdown type thing. And then it's going to be primary season. And then maybe in the summer before recess, they might get something done. And then it's the general for midterms. After that, history has, not been kind to the party in control after a presidential election year in the next midterm election. If history repeats itself, Biden is at best a lame duck president. So, not at best. Sorry, at best would be keeping power. But like, there's a good chance he's a lame duck president for at least the next 2 years. So I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do, and they're just kind of scrambling. I don't have high hopes for them, but they need to do something, because what else are they going to run on?
Well, I did see Joe Biden saying today, well, we passed this bipartisan infrastructure deal and we're removing weight limits on bridges.
Yeah, all my homies love that.
Sorry, you're removing what? What is that actually? Because that doesn't sound that great to me, but that's going to fix the supply chain issues, I guess. Good thing America's infrastructure is really in good shape, bridges and famously as well.
Yeah,
so that should be really great. So good job on that one.
This is like one of the just like absolutely silliest things, and is because yes, Americans like nice stuff. You know, they like bridges that aren't falling apart. They like, you know, apartment buildings that won't fall on top of them. Okay, we like those creature comforts. What we hate is construction, and that's like, I don't know how much this is actually going to affect, but like literally it's like at this point you only delivered something for contractors' pockets, you know? Whatever projects that are going to get done at most is going to be an annoyance by voting time. You know, it's just going to be a bunch of construction and closed down shit. He could have done things. He can still do things, you know, like student loan debt is one thing. I mean, hell, like the reschedulizing cannabis is another thing that he could just do at a snap of his fingers and really change the viewpoint that a lot of people have of Joe Biden. And you know, there's no recollection, no recollection of that, you know, and yeah, it's just that the Democratic Party, they're out of touch completely. And that's where it's like the Republicans are a lot more dangerous, is because they're actually in touch with what their base is saying and doing. They don't necessarily have to deliver on those wants and needs. They just have to, I guess, give the illusion, right, that whatever they are doing is somehow tied to those problems. And yeah, you can't do that in the Democrats by laughing at tests, you know, being delivered.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in case anyone's listening to this and they're kind of like a Democratic Party partisan or something, I know we have a lot of these people in our listener base that listen to this show. They just love the Democratic Party and everything they do. In case they think we're all negative, Joe Biden did do something today that was quite cool, which I don't think they can really run on, but when he called Peter Doocey a stupid son of a bitch
yes.
at a press conference. That was cool.
That's when he became my president.
Yeah.
Which I'm
I
happy
support that.
To announce I'm coming out of retirement. I'm willing to serve in the military for a president that's willing to call Doocey a son of a bitch.
Yeah. You're going to deploy to Crimea.
Can't wait.
It's honestly the funniest thing he's ever done. Like, because this is the thing. Like, Doocey was trying to get Biden to talk about inflation just so they had a sound clip, so Fox's story could be Biden's inflation troubles, you know, continue to fester, and like they can make a news cycle out of that, right? Because the market's like super down today. It's like one of the worst months since the beginning of the pandemic, and you know, on a macro level, it's pretty bad, and they've been pushing the inflation narrative for a couple months now, despite that very obviously being corporate greed. Like, corporate greed is driving up prices. It's not really, and then also there's like a lot of millionaires and billionaires are worried about Fed rate hikes, because now for like the first time in like a decade, they might not be able to basically get free money or like interest-free money.
Yeah. So it's
like
basically like a low-key capital strike, which is causing this like quote-unquote inflation. You know,
that's what they're upset about, and they just wanted a sound clip. So he yelled out as they were from the gaggle as they were getting shooed away. Is inflation going to be a political asset in the midterm? Obviously a ludicrous premise, but he just wanted Biden to talk about inflation, and he was like, you know, he said like a massive asset. Yeah, give me a break. He's like, this stupid son of a bitch or something like that, which is fucking hilarious. Yeah. And I just like, now all the right wingers who didn't really give a shit about anything Trump did for 4 years are like, this is a, you know, attack on the First Amendment. And like, I think some of them are just kind of mocking how liberals were when Trump would insult reporters, but this is objectively funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. They were like,
Yeah.
you know, they were sensational and hysterical for 4 years. Like this is very funny.
I'm upset about it because it's uncouth and beneath the office of the president.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. The famously very dignified office where all kinds of wonderful, honorable things have been passed down to the American people and to people around the world. No, it was funny though. It's like, and nothing like Peter Doocey is a stupid son of a bitch. Like, and nothing says more. Nothing says more about America's like fucking pathetic, nepotistic, swamp-like media culture than the fact that Peter Doocey even has a job in the first place. This fucking fail-son loser who's like in this like important position in Fox News exactly because of who his dad is. He just totally spits in the face that like anything in the media or anything else in America, the corporate world is part of some kind of meritocracy. It's not based entirely around nepotism and like who you know. The fact that he even has a job in the first place. So yeah, that was actually very funny when Biden did that. I would like to see more of that from Joe Biden. And less of all the bad stuff that we spent the first 30 minutes talking about. If he kept calling Peter Doocey a stupid son of a bitch, I would at least begrudgingly accept that he was like, there's been a few successes in this this administration.
I mean, watching Peter Doocey ask questions about like Hunter Biden's art career is one of the most infuriating things that you can watch. There's a few things that Joe Biden can do that is like actually like, oh, this is just real Joe Biden that I'd actually enjoy. And this is definitely one of them. Let's go, Brand. Do we use it now?
Unironically, yeah.
Do we say it?
Yeah.
Now?
You got Sometimes he gets it right. Listen, it's not been ideal. Sometimes he gets it right.
Wait, have you seen that cringy like resistance group Midas Touch, their Let's Go Brandon ad? They ran it on Fox. It's like this. It's like they spell out Brandon and turn it into an acronym, and it's like broadband, reliable infrastructure. I can't remember, America. I don't fucking remember what it spelled out, but it's like, and then everything after every letter, they'd have this like cringy cheer. Let's go, Brandon, and then like a really poorly clipped soundbite of Biden saying something like roads, bridges. It's awful. It's so awful. But
boy.
They're trying to like reclaim it. Like, let's go, Brandon is our term. And they're trying to reclaim it. And they're now running ads on Fox. Like, let's go, Brandon. Pro-Biden, let's go, Brandon ads.
This is going to I think this is going to be a game changer. This is
what the independents have been waiting for. A sign that the Democrats care about it.
Like, and this is what you get when you only listen to like these think tank DC like insiders, people, consultant types, who've just been like getting high off their own farts for decades now, and this is like what they can produce. Is like, what if we try and reclaim? No. What if you did things for people? What if you didn't pay attention at all to the dumb fuckery that goes on, and you just helped people? What if you did that?
Yep. Crazy. It's a crazy idea. I mean, maybe eventually someone's going to try this. I mean, we've talked about this for the last year. Like that was the real central like question, is whether they were going to actually learn this basic lesson that like, in order to not lose elections, people have voted for us now. They've given us this political power. We've promised to do all kinds of stuff with it. So we have to deliver on that stuff. Or we have to at least look like we're trying to do that. And I thought maybe they just basically understood this lesson. Like, I don't think that Joe Biden or anyone else in like the elite power structure of the Democratic Party like has had this big change of heart about like what, whether these big spending programs are good or bad. I thought they might just get the basic idea though. Like, in order to not lose, we just have to do this. And it's like, I was almost willing to entertain the idea that they were going to figure this out for the first couple of months, and it's just been this like slow process, just being like, oh no, they're committing all the exact same mistakes. They're going to get crushed again. Like we talked a couple weeks ago about like when we were talking with Ken about how like the guys that work for the Democratic Party in DC, they're all like planning to get new jobs in 2 years because they all know exactly what's going to happen. And that's the thing when it comes to like Biden, Manchin and Sinema and that, it would be more understandable if they were being blocked by their own party, despite all the shit that Biden said about making deals with the Republicans. He can't even get his own party on board with his own agenda. But like, if he was actually going out there, like we've talked about a couple of times now, if he was actually going out there and saying like, Joe Manchin, What are you doing? Like, actually putting pressure on them, actually saying their names, actually like doing anything to put pressure on the people in his own party that are saying no to his own agenda.
Yeah.
But he just has not done that at any point. In fact, like the other day in that press conference a couple days ago, the one person he name dropped the most was Bernie Sanders, to say the guy who's been out there fighting for his agenda the most. He's like, hey, I'm not a radical socialist like Bernie Sanders. Well, he's more willing to throw him under the bus than fucking Joe Manchin.
Yes. And the thing is too, is like, who does he actually mention? And even like going back to when he went to Georgia, and had that very stern speech that like literally all these Republicans were like up in arms crying about the next day.
Yeah.
He never, like, he won't say, they won't say Trump's name, right? He's like, you can't say
Voldemort,
Trump, right? Yeah. Like, that guy. And
I guess that it's not a good analogy when you said the name that you're not supposed to say.
You said it.
The idea.
Exactly.
Folks get the idea. Everyone loves
exactly. They're not allowed to say Trump. But at one of these press conferences, he talks about how him and Mitch McConnell are friends, and like, I don't know what type of friends y'all keep. If I had a friend that was just hell bent on like ruining my life,
that's a toxic friend.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not something that I would, that's not, a friend, but then, oh, hey, we'll talk about Mitch McConnell in a good light, saying, oh, hey, look, my friend, look at the bipartisan infrastructure deal, look at all these fucking good things. Bernie Sanders, even though everything that Bernie, it's really not about Bernie, it's one of the issues that little Bernie has been going around the country, and supporting the popular issues. You're just kind of openly saying, I'm not for that, right? But doing it in an acceptable way by pointing at Bernie Sanders and saying, listen, I'm not Bernie Sanders. And, hey, it'll rile up the K-Hive. Because I was like wondering, I was like, man, like seeing all this like K-Hive madness about Bernie again. And it was just like, oh, it was because Joe Biden had to say some shit. And I mean, when you look at the past year, who have been the members of Congress that have actually been going out in public and supporting Joe Biden's agenda, and it's been Bernie Sanders, Pramila Jayapal, Rashida Tlaib, AOC, right, Ilhan Omar. They're like literally going out there and utilizing their political will, trying to get these bills passed. And there's no love from them, from the Biden administration, and at any point in chance that they can take a shot, Biden will absolutely take one at Bernie.
Yeah, and it just shows the animus they have toward progressives in Congress. The solution to their problem, not being able to get these things passed, are to make Manchin and Sinema irrelevant, right? And they don't want to do that. Sinema was like handpicked by the DCCC or DNC over Gallego, who would have been more supportive. Manchin is a much trickier situation because they certainly wouldn't support a progressive challenger in there, though. But even in the House, when they were facing opposition over reconciliation in the House, the two people who led that charge were Josh Gottheimer and Henry Cuellar. And Josh Gottheimer was loud in his opposition to it and like menacing, and this is something Ryan Grimm has covered for like years. This curious case of Josh Gottheimer, because he's like a hothead, he's uncooperative, he's non-collegial, he's aggressive, all these types of things, right? And he was trying to chip away at reconciliation and just pass infrastructure when the deal, up until Democrats passed infrastructure and gave away their leverage, was one for the other, right? Because you kind of had people in a bind, like a lot of Republicans wanted infrastructure. And Gottheimer is trying to stall and block or just get infrastructure through, just to implode the deal. And this is somebody who any reasonable observer or reasonable person would say, oh, this person's just in the way. But he's not going to face any backlash from the party leadership, because he also is working with party leadership on a PAC, Team Blue PAC, to protect Democratic incumbents from progressive primary challengers. So he's bringing in money to help them protect their jobs from outside challengers, namely Justice Democrats. And Henry Cuellar is somebody who voted with Trump up to 70% of the time, 69% specifically, in the first two terms of Trump's presidency. When
I heard that name in the news over the past week.
I'm getting
trying
there.
trying to remember where. Yeah. Okay.
So he's somebody who voted with Trump 69% of the time in the first 2 years, when Trump was able to inflict the most possible damage because he had complete control of the government. Cuellar's just voting with him left and right. This is a guy who is a super conservative Democrat. He's basically a Republican. And when he was facing a tough primary in 2020 against Jessica Cisneros, a Justice Democrat, I mean, it was within a couple points. Pelosi flies down there, fundraises and campaigns for him in the waning days of the election. Says, we got to get him over the finish line. He's going to bring it home. And this is, Nancy Pelosi's like, I always support women, right? Well, except in this case.
Yeah.
So this is a guy, he showed you who he was when Trump was in power, and you still go down and you campaign for him and fundraise for him. And then he turns around and tries to block like the signature piece of Biden's agenda. So he's running again. Jessica Cisneros is running again. And this week, Steny Hoyer, and I'm sure Pelosi will as well, Steny Hoyer publicly endorses Henry Cuellar in his re-election campaign. He just stood in the way of Build Back Better, and then you have like the second in command in the House endorsing him. On the same day, his house and campaign office is raided by the FBI for what looks like him basically being a paid, lobbyist for like Azerbaijan. And there's probably a bunch of like oil money and like lobbying money that he's being paid under the table. Ryan Grimm and Lee Fang in The Intercept have a great story about what this probably is about, because it's still not confirmed, but like that's almost certainly why. The same day, his office and his house gets raided by the FBI, Steny Hoyer endorses this guy who just stood in the way of Biden's signature legislative piece of his agenda. So, like, these are the way around this is to get these people out of the way, but they won't do it because they hate progressives and leftists more than they want to get these things through.
Jordan, I'm a little disappointed in you. In this country, we believe that innocent until proven guilty. And so I
didn't say he was guilty. I just said he was raided, which is true.
Yeah, no, yes, yeah. Which, like, and that's the thing. It's like, my first impression before like as soon as I heard, I was like, ooh, campaign finance. That was something I was like thinking about. But yeah, either way, like that's like you're 100% on, right? Is that when it comes to Democrats that are literally stopping the party line, when it comes to Republicans, these are friends, these are colleagues, these are pals, these are chums. Come on to the yacht. Let's have some, I don't know, charcuterie boards or something. Like whatever they
caviar. I don't know.
Something like fancy. And but for people who are just trying to help working class people, like it's really not that bad, like there's no, it's okay. It's nice actually, like getting people out of poverty. That's a good thing. Yeah. Right? It's something to be happy about.
That used to be something that in the Democratic Party was like not a controversial thing to want to do.
But
not in my living memory personally, but at some point in the past,
it used to be
like one of their priorities.
Yeah. But that's at this point, it's like there's an internal battle within the Democratic Party over officials trading stock. Like this. Yeah. This is what's happening, and at this point too, it's like if you could just look at the Republican Party in a silo, you would think that this is the party that's just getting smacked around by their political opponents, right? Because this is a party that's like literally at odds with itself. Yet, what is going to happen in the midterm?
Yeah, no, but that's the thing. All the ways we've outlining to it, it's really a great party, though, and it's going to be really, I think people are going to be really motivated to wait in line to vote for this party when they're told the next couple of months, this is the most important election of your lifetimes. You have to prevent the terrible Republicans from taking over. People are going to be so motivated to get out there when like this is the fucking contempt that they have for anyone that like remotely questions whether they can possibly start trying to help the few odd people. And that's I think something interesting as well is that they've set up this kind of argument now where like Republicans have and conservatives in America have kind of taken this turn of like trying to disenfranchise people, trying to limit people's ability to vote. They are indeed taking these steps to do this. But when it comes down to like the midterms, that's not going to be the reason why the Democrats lose. It's going to be because they didn't do anything, because they did all the things that we've very like meticulously outlined over the course of this conversation. But it's going to lead to this endless cycle now where they're never going to actually look in the mirror and accept responsibility for this. It's going to be because of like the Republicans' autocratic turn towards like disenfranchising people. They're going to blame this on the reason they don't win elections anymore, and not actually say like, perhaps we should have like passed our own agenda that we campaigned on and not supported members of our own party that explicitly like did not allow us to do this. But they'll never make this connection.
3 people said defund the police, and even though they gave the police millions upon millions of dollars, that's the reason.
It's their fault.
It's their fault. That's it.
It's the entitled Bernie bros. Again, it's going to be the same fucking thing, the same thing.
Yeah.
Blaming the left.
Well, there was already questions of like, oh, has Biden gone too far to the left? That's why he's unpopular. And it's like, no, it's the same reason. Honestly, it's a very similar reason why Trump lost. Maybe Americans don't like seeing their friends and family members die at that, at an extremely alarming rate from a preventable illness that they're just literally to your face laughing when you ask for help. It's a hard sell.
Yeah. Well, and that's ultimately like, I think what it comes down to as well, when it comes down to that whole, like, this is going to be the most progressive administration since FDR and all this stuff. I really think that they like wanted the credit for just proposing big things, because they did propose some pretty big things in that Build Back Better
the work
framework.
Of saying.
Yeah.
They want credit for the work of saying.
That's it. Yeah. They want credit for just proposing the stuff. But like the idea to ever actually like push or fight to actually pass these things that they talk about has completely been taken off the table from fucking day one. But they still want that credit for being like, well, we said we were going to do those things. Like, yeah, the work of saying, like you're saying, we proposed the things. Isn't that enough?
Yeah.
But for people that are fucking literally like struggling to keep their heads above water, people who have lost family members to COVID or to drug addiction or to mass incarceration or anything, it's like, no, that's not going to be enough. That's not going to be enough to convince these people to go and stand in line again and vote their asses off again for the fucking Democratic Party. Like, people are just going to give up. And it's like, I don't really blame them.
Yeah. And with less favorable conditions for voting, this is one of the big things is that while it is extremely difficult and the government has made it very hard to vote in the United States, the past general election was one of the easier times people could vote in the U.S. If this goes away, there's a lot of people who are able to vote very easily that just will not do any of the waiting. They just will not do any of the bullshit that they are now counting on, right? Because hey, that's the point that Psaki was trying to make, was go have a margarita, take your big kickboxing class, because you're needing to prepare yourself for some harsh voting conditions. And we're not going to do anything to help.
Yeah.
Steel your body, Americans. Voting season's coming up.
I guess, Marcus, I mean, we touched on this before. We touched on this a while back, talking about deploying to Donbass because you're so motivated by Joe Biden's new tough stance towards Peter Doocey. This is something that's been in the headlines a lot, and I know you were in the military. This is one thing that you can also focus on in terms of like America's like extremely brutal and belligerent foreign policy. We're seeing a lot of stories in the news right now about the possibility of some kind of Russian invasion of Ukraine. We did on the last episode of this show, I think we did a bit of a dive into like what that conflict is about. And, the sort of context of it that gets left out of Western media, which is framed where this is framed entirely as this story about Russian belligerence and Russian aggression, which is not exactly lined up to the actual reality of the conditions in places like Donbass or Crimea. But I was just wondering, like, as you see this kind of like this conflict start to dominate the headlines, you see this kind of lust for war that we're seeing from these sort of people in the media. Like, this is the thing they really get up for, right? I was just wondering, like, what your thoughts were as you see this kind of the same conversation starting up again when it comes to increased tension with Russia, increased conflict, more sanctions, the possibility of like military intervention. As we know, America and Canada are like arming and funding these fascist militias in Ukraine to fight in the civil war.
Yeah.
lot of bad shit going on. What are your thoughts when it comes to this Russia-Ukraine conflict?
Which I mean, like, I think it's pretty open. Like, a lot of this is securing corporate interests, you know, and some of that, like, Biden said it himself, and you know, going back to like this is why I watch them, you know, is because like they'll openly admit it. Biden said that they're really not interested in actually defending Ukrainian sovereignty. You know, if he said if Russia wants it, they're going to take it. Our goal is to make Russia hurt, you know, when they do. And on the other side of that, if that you know, with current sanctions and that even sanction policy, mostly largely driven for you know, some of these like natural gas and oil interests and stuff like that. And it's difficult, really, you know, I'm sure you both understand this. It's hard to like know all the ins and outs of any of these conflicts. But I think what is most important thing to know for progressives, for leftists, is that if United States intervention, especially military intervention, that is never going to end in a positive outcome for the working class people of whatever country.
Yeah.
And so there's always got to be a different route. I believe sanctions are just, you know, a soft warfare tool. You know, I feel like this isn't, you know, there's really no difference in blanket sanctions. You know, like I guess like personal people that could be, you know, seen a different way. But no, at the end of the day, though, what we're feeling right now, or like the tensions that are at now, is something that the U.S. loves. Any government, you know, Democrat or Republican, is absolutely in love with a situation that points to the other end of the world where they can just sell, hopefully, as many weapons as they can. Yeah, it completely drives the focus away from the lack of work that they're doing, you know, domestically. Because today, it's all questions. Russia. That's what it's all about. Not the record number of people dying from COVID again. Not the record number of people who are actually out of work, and not the scam unemployment data that the government will massage and build in a way that doesn't really account for what's happening in our lives. They talk about this lead, you know, like lead paint, lead in the water initiatives. This thing's gonna be going over for like 10 years. It's when they're saying they're gonna be done. You got an issue in Red Hill, Hawaii. You know, these are the things that we are now not talking about, not focusing on, so that they can they can just fearmonger into more weapon sales. And I don't know. It's frustrating for me to be just like existing in this thing that's like continuing to go on and on and on and on.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that was so amazing was because you would think that they could be using this as some kind of a distraction towards their like complete inability to pass their own agenda, but it's been blowing up in Biden's face even, because the other day he gave this completely mild statement, completely uncontroversial. He was like, well, we're not going to launch a full-scale war if there's some kind of like minor conflict with Russia and Ukraine, and people just lost it. These fucking lunatics in American media just lost it at his like this Russian appeasement thing, and like it's absolutely deranged the way these media folks have been completely hyping up this narrative and basically inventing the idea that there's going to be some invasion from Russian invasion, totally whole cloth, because they've like moved around troops in their own country. You know, the United States that has fucking military bases and troops all over the world, all over the place, who routinely invade countries and destabilize and sanction and assassinate, and then for them to suggest that like, you know, there's some kind of like problem with the evil devious Russians again because they've moved some troops around in their own country. It's sick. These like fucking weirdos in the media took Biden's very mild statement about this and just like lost their minds over it. And this is similar to the way that they lost their minds over his correct decision to follow through on Trump's timeline with pulling troops out of Afghanistan. You know, this is the stuff that really upsets these people, not the COVID deaths and not all the other things that we're talking about.
Which it's and the thing is too is like even with the like they're so upset with the pull out of Afghanistan, and what do they say? Oh, well, think of the women and girls.
Yeah, that's what it always is. Yeah.
Now there's a food shortage that now they're predicting like 1 million Afghans are going to die.
Which is a direct result of their sanctions as well.
Exactly. Yes. Right. Like, which is like we're not giving the resources that we used to give to that country, and there's nothing we don't and even the way what is the part that they talk about? Oh, how could like the 13 service members, right? 13.
Yeah.
You got people setting out 13 Subway sandwiches on picnic tables. But we don't really address like the dozens of people who were slaughtered after that bombing. We don't discuss still the Pentagon, the U.S. government has done nothing for the family. The 10 people that were killed. It was like 7 kids. We've literally done nothing for that family.
Nor was anyone actually held responsible for this like brutal war crime. Like we investigated ourselves and found that actually that we didn't.
It was a whoopsies.
That we didn't do anything wrong. Big mistake.
Yeah,
unfortunately,
it was just a whoopsies. And this is where too of that the best case scenario with whatever happens to Ukraine is that things just naturally de-escalate and the weapons that we sold them just rust somewhere in a warehouse. But that's not usually how these things turn out.
I don't know. Usually when America arms and funds like, Islamic militants and neo-Nazis, usually that turns out really well for them when they train them to fight guys that they also don't like.
That definitely has not come back.
That works every time.
To bite us in the ass extremely recently. No, it did not.
Yeah. Well, that's a pretty sorry state of affairs, I got to say.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is a tough road for to be the best country in the world.
That's what we have to do. Yeah. Anyway, vote blue no matter who, definitely. In the next election cycle is what I would encourage everyone to do.
And I will say, yeah. Well, and this is where hopefully I get hopeful is that the things that we point to that are the Democratic Party failures, the trends that we'd hit on in the mid, off elections. This means that the primary fight is more winnable than it is in the general election. So this is where the insurgents into the Democratic Party, shout out Insurgents Pod.
Hell yeah. Another professional segue. Look at that.
This is the insurgents into the Democratic Party. You will have a easier task than usual because of that depression in voting across, just because of their failures, right? So yeah, well, it is this dismal outlook as of right now. I think this is the time. Well, I don't know. Lean in. Always lean in. But I feel like at this point, for these midterm elections, you can reap more reward because a lot of those vote blue no matter who people are just going to be too tired of the bullshit. Especially for the primary as well. So,
yeah. Jordan, do you have a final thought you want to leave us? I'm depressed again.
Yeah, that's usually how it goes. I mean, it's just time to raise awareness about voting. That's it.
Yeah,
that's all we have to do.
That's all we can do. That's all we can do. Well, Marcus, it was great to talk to you, man. I'm happy you could come on the show finally.
Yeah,
this is good that you could do this.
I appreciate you having me on, and making me feel so happy about my country.
Yeah. This is what I do. This is part of my actual foreign destabilization effort that I'm engaged in.
Just doing a great job.
Yeah,
doing disinformation.
That's exactly right.
Disinformatia.
That's Well, I mean, it shows kind of the nefarious sort of results of that endless Russia bad narrative that kind of picked up around Trump, and it's allowed like this conflict to spiral out of control, and it's given cover to people like in Canada and the United States to like arm and fund and train some very dangerous people and to really like engage in this very destructive foreign policy, and liberals just kind of swallow it up because Putin bad, Russia bad, and anyone that disagrees with this, I actually don't think it's good to arm neo-Nazis in Ukraine. I think that's a bad thing to do. And it's like, well, why do you love Putin? This is just Putin disinformation and stuff. It's like, well, great. Like, you can't even have a fucking conversation about arming Nazis, which shouldn't be controversial. But Putin be bad, so I guess that's the only thing you can do. All you can do is arm the Nazis, and so great. That's where we are with that. Just a final depressing note to point out on.
Really had to drive it home.
Yeah,
in case anyone
Marcus
was feeling a slight optimism.
Yeah, they might have got some sunny rays might have snuck through there. We got to make sure that's
stamped out.
Yeah, stamp that out. Marcus, where can people find the stream? Where can people find you? Plug your stuff.
Left Flank Vets on the Bird app, on Twitter, twitch.tv/Left Flank Vets. And I think we got like a website too, but if you go to those two sites that I told you, you'll be able to get to our website where we have some merch, t-shirts, silkies, shorts. The only
Very
thing
nice.
worth bringing from the military are a nice pair of silkies. And yeah,
Sweet.
yeah, that's the plug.
Well, thanks a lot, Marcus.
Thank
It's
you.
great to talk to you. We'll talk to you soon, okay, man?
Cool.
All right. Take care. Thank you for listening to The Insurgents. Please remember to subscribe over at theinsurgents.substack.com. Find the podcast on all your favorite podcast apps. And please remember to leave a review on Apple Podcasts. It's very helpful and we appreciate it a lot. But please, again, don't mention Ken Klippenstein in the review. He is banned from the show. It's a lifetime ban. So please do not mention him in the review. And we'll be back later this week with more of the content that you know and love. Goodbye.